Hello, welcome back. I have a special guest today, Andrea Sasman with Nicolet Bank, and I am having her help me explain to you because this has been my number one question right now in the last month, I would say. And 2023 poses a really good opportunity for first-time home buyers to be back in the market after having been pretty much priced out the last couple of years. The question that I get constantly, Andrea, is are there any first-time home buyer programs for financing? And I thought, who better to ask than a lender? What have you got for my first timers?
Yeah, so there's three programs that I would recommend, and they're all 3% down programs. One is a Freddie Mac program called Home Possible. One is a Fannie Mae program called Home Ready. And then there's WIDA, which is also a Fannie Mae program, but it's, for the state of Wisconsin. And that is a 3% down, which WIDA can be they have a second mortgage offering too, where somebody could buy a home without needing any money down. So those are like the three good first time home buyer programs that I like to offer.
Okay. There are others that have a little bit higher down payments, but those are the lowest. Good to know that
Mhm.
WIDA, which again, if you're watching outside of the state of Wisconsin, this is a state of Wisconsin program, can be 100% financing. It's just that there are two back-to-back mortgages, which
Mhm.
honestly, in 2005, when I bought my house, that was a very common practice, and we haven't seen it in a while. I'm happy to see that come back. Are there
Mhm.
any assistance programs for people who want to use a down payment to keep their loan payment maybe a little bit lower or their interest rate a little bit lower?
Yeah, so there is a grant called it's the Down Payment Plus grant. Um, in the past so many years, it's been $6,000, but awesome news this year, it's $10,000. The
Wow.
only Yeah, $10,000 is a lot. So they increased it just because the cost of living has gone up, prices of homes are going up. So they increased it to $10,000 to help more with the down payment and the closing costs. The only requirements to get the grant are you have to complete a home buyer education and counseling, which once I have somebody pre-approved, I direct them to where they can go to complete those. And then you have to put a minimum of $1,000 of your own money into the transaction. So I always tell people, your earnest money can accomplish that $1,000. And then the only other requirements is you have to fall under the income limit. So I do have a great flyer that I did share with Lora that I don't know if you would have that to include with your buyers, but it does have income limits for each county. So there's Lincoln County on the flyer, there's Portage County, there's Marathon County, and the income limits go up with your growing family size.
Yes, I do have that, and I will see if I can splice it into this video as an
Yeah.
image. If I can't, I will just have folks reach out to me. I can certainly forward a copy via email, no problem whatsoever, or text a copy as well. So feel free to reach out to me if you want that information. I will be happy to share it. The the $10,000, so that can be used towards your down payment, but also other costs associated with the loan, correct?
Yes, and it's fully forgiven after 5 years. So once you're in the home for 5 years, it's forgiven. There's no payments on it. Um, and fully forgiven after 5 years. So it would be recorded as a lien on your, title. But once that 5 years has passed, it's satisfied and released off of your title. So if you were to sell your home before those 5 years were up, it's every month you're in the home, it's like $166 of it would be forgiven with the $10,000. So whatever
Okay.
would be left on that would have to be, paid back if you were to sell before those 5 years.
Okay. So first timers, obviously, if you've never bought a home, you've never sold a home. What that means is when you go to sell your house, you will be required, obviously, to pay back the money that you've borrowed. Just like a car loan, if you have ever had one of those, as you continue to pay down your loan, you're paying more of the amount that you've borrowed and less of the amount of interest accruing over time on your payments. So when you go 5 years, I should back myself up a minute and say you are required to stay in a home that is your primary residence for 2 years before you sell it, or you are subject to capital gains taxes, which is another conversation we can have. I don't want to go into the weeds on that. So let's say you've been in the home for 2 years, you've mostly paid interest payments. So your balance on your loan is going to be pretty close to what you actually borrowed. So if, for instance, you bought a house for $100,000, you use the 3% down loan program, that means you borrowed $97,000. You're probably going to be paying off pretty close to $97,000, maybe 95, who knows. And if you use the down payment plus grant, you would also be paying whatever accrued amount is still left to be paid back minus the months that you live there, correct?
Mm-hmm. And
Yeah.
if you have a down payment that you want to put down, you can still get the grant. That just means that your first mortgage is going to be all the less. So your monthly payment will be less. So yeah, it doesn't, if you're a buyer and you have a 20% down, great. You can still get that grant if you fall in these income limits.
Is it specific for a first-time home buyer? This is a question that I get
No,
often.
yeah, it can be used for a non-first time home buyer, but it has to be your primary home. And you have to fall in these income limits.
Okay. And if you own another home, let's say this is a common occurrence that I get once in a while. Two individuals, one of them has owned a home in the past, one of them hasn't. They decide they're going to purchase a home in the same mortgage together.
Mm-hmm.
Person number one with the other house might have chosen to keep that as a rental potentially, and that is now going to still have a primary mortgage on it. Is that something that they would be eligible for with the down payment plus?
Yeah, but I mean, we would have to look at rental income too, right? So,
Yeah.
I mean, there's chances that with having a rental property with that rental income to count with their income that they may not, they would maybe be over the income limits.
Okay.
And not qualify for the grant if they chose to keep that home.
Okay. So if people have questions, obviously I have a lot of details that we can't really get into with all of the loan programs because each one of them is it's its own little animal. Ultimately, to get ready to apply for a loan, you need 2 months bank statements, 2 weeks of pay stubs, or two pay periods of pay stubs.
A 30-day pay stub. So
okay.
Yeah.
And then 2 years of tax returns.
Yep, 2 years tax returns, 2 years W-2s.
And then your underwriters take a look at debt to income ratio, credit scores, anything else?
And their assets, their down payment, where that's going to be coming from. So yep, those are all the things we look at for our pre-approval. And our pre-approval letters are good for 120 days. Yeah, it's a full underwriting pre-approval, which is nice because everything's been reviewed. So then when they find a home, it's just getting that approval.
That is a huge asset, especially as we head into the spring market. In case it gets a little competitive again, which it might in certain price points, that'll be good for them to know. And then how long does it take them to get their pre-approval back once they apply?
Like same day.
Perfect.
Yeah.
And
I have been noticing that appraisers are really quick right now too, just because it is slower. Like we ordered an appraisal last Friday and I got it back on Monday. So
holy cow, that's the best I've ever heard.
Yeah, it's really quick right now.
Perfect. So from start to finish of loan application, well, I should really clarify. Loan application comes before you find a house, right? Because I'm not showing you a house if you're not pre-approved for a loan. Exactly. So once we find a house and get an offer accepted, start to finish, what do you have for general closing timelines right now from accepted offer to close?
Everybody, the time, I would say, a 30-day close is great. Yeah. If you need it to be done in 20 days, definitely doable just because it being slower and being able to get appraisals back quicker. So we're definitely not in that 45-day to 60-day market anymore. We're in a quicker market. So
that's awesome. Awesome. Yeah. Obviously, that all depends on a seller's availability too. So buyers, you don't just get to name the date. that is a negotiable item. So, um, I think that's everything that I had received recently for questions that I'm so glad I had a resource to tap into to be able to address on the professional side. Do you have any other tips or tricks for first time home buyers right now that you think people should be aware of that maybe they don't think about before talking to you?
Um, Not really. Just the one thing I would say is if you are thinking about buying a home, but you're also thinking you're not to the point where you're ready, still reach out and call me because I can help guide you and answer your questions to help you get ready to be ready for that pre-approval.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. It also gives you some idea of what your monthly payment looks like and your price point that you're pre-approved for, so you can kind of keep that in mind as you're sort of monitoring the market and the price points to see what's out there in those um, price points that will be something that you are or aren't interested in. And if you're not, you can obviously make the decision to, re-up your lease or stay with your parents or whatever the case may be. I think one tip that I would add to that is to make sure that once you decide you're going to start looking at properties, to not make big purchases. And if you're going to change jobs, make
Mhm.
sure that we know about it,
Yeah, and that
especially after we get an accepted
work.
offer.
Yeah, same line of work. I mean, you can change your job, but it's got to be the same line of work.
Right. And you
So,
have to have a contract to be able to
yeah,
prove what you'll be paid.
yes.
Good to know, Andrea. I hope that you have a wonderful rest of the day. I really appreciate you taking the time to be able to talk about Down Payment Plus grant and the loan programs that are available for first time home buyers, not specifically, but as a really good option to be able to afford to get into a home this year. So thank you again, and we'll
Yeah,
talk to you soon.